Why can't you use quantum entanglement to transmit information? I will tell you practically why. So when you entangle two particles, they only remain entangled if you do nothing to them. Like, they can move, but if you alter them in any way, the entanglement breaks. So quantum entanglement, for those of you who don't know, quick rundown, is when you entangle two particles and then you can separate them by a big distance, and then when you read them, one will always be in one state and one will be in the opposite state. So for electrons, spin up and spin down. If you did that thing but forced one of the electrons to be in spin up, the other electron might just be in spin up. You've broken the entanglement. This effect only happens if the only thing you do is observe, and if you observe one of the electrons, there's gonna be a probability chance that it's spin up or spin down. So you can't actually transmit information because you can't choose if it's spin up or spin down. So that's why you can't actually use it to send information. The information, by its nature, has to be random. And a lot of people try and get around this by saying things like, oh, well, what if you had a binary state? One being that the wave function has collapsed and it is either spin up or spin down, and the other being that it is both, it's still in a superposition. The problem there is that there is no state in which we can observe the particle and say it is still in a superposition. Once we have done the observation, it has a definite spin. Again, quantum entanglement doesn't suddenly transform a second particle when something happens to the first particle. If the first particle is in a superposition and then you read it and it has spin up, the other particle doesn't suddenly become spin down, it's still in a superposition, and until you read it, you are not going to get the reading spin down. So aside from the issues before, even if those weren't issues, the next thing you have to ask is, how are you going to make sure that someone light years away from you will know when to read the particle? Again, you can't break the speed of light, so there's no way to tell them, okay, read the particle now, I've read mine. So anytime they read the particle, they could be seeing a result that is because you read yours. Or they could be reading theirs first, which will impact yours. Or you could be reading it at the same time. You can't send a message that way because you can't, make an alarm go ding when an entangled particle is read on one end. The particle on your end stays in a superposition until you read it. For all intents and purposes, nothing about your particle has changed. It's just you know what the outcome is going to be. And that is some of the weirdest and coolest things about quantum mechanics, because there is this dependent state with apparently nothing happening to the particles. There is nothing physically going on that you can detect. Again, that's why Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. It is kind of spooky.